Hi, welcome to a video about the SQL language, how to write SQL queries. And we're going to focus on different things in this video. I'm going to focus mainly on commands. So we're going to look into both data definition and data manipulation. So I'm going to show you how can we create a database, how can we delete a database, how can we create tables and delete tables, how can we alter the tables we already did, how can we create primary keys, how can we create foreign keys, how can we do auto-increment in the database. Also, I'm going to show you how you can create mock data for your database, which is oftentimes really important because we want some data to work with. Also, we're going to look into how we can select different data from a database, like reading it, how to delete data, how to insert new data, how to update already existing data. And lastly, we're going to look at joins. How can we join different data from different tables together based on something they have in common? And this, of course, has to do with primary and foreign keys. So this video kind of you have to know already about what a relational database is, and this will also focus on SQL in or SQL in Microsoft SQL Server. There is a bit of difference between the different servers. Not a lot for these simple things that we're going to do in this video, but for more complex stuff, you better look up how you have to do things based on which kind of database you're doing. So, or based on which kind of database server you're actually running. So, but in this case, I'm using a local database that I have, which I'm connecting to, and I want to show you how we can connect to the database and start running some queries. So I already have a database server set up. So I'm just going to connect to this, and I just click on it. I'm using Microsoft Azure Data Studio here, which I think is a great program. So I can look up my databases here and see I have only one, an old one that I'm not using anymore. So I have different options here. The first one is I actually want to show you some stuff here. So to do this, we need to make a new query, and that query we need to select which what are we really which connection are we working on here, and this is going to be this connection automatically, so we are ready to do some work here. Let me just zoom for a second. So just went into the font settings here and changed it into font size 22, so it's easier for you to read on your screen. So let's try to do some queries. So let's look at, there are basically two kinds of queries we can do. One of the queries we can do is data manipulation language, and this has to do with changing the data inside of our tables and everything. And the other one is changing the tables itself. So this is about creating databases and tables and stuff like that. And this one is about the data inside of it. So this is basically about tables and its columns, and this is about all the contents of the tables. So let's try to do something simple first. Let's create a database and let's call it like a demo database. So to do that, we need to use the create keyword, and we need also to say that we want to create a database, and this database, we need to name that somehow. So we need to give it some name that we want, and I'm thinking for this, let's just call it demo. You see I have one over here, MRS. So if I run this code, it says command executed successfully, and that should mean that if I refresh over here, I now have my demo database here. right? So we have an empty demo database here. So now I should be able also to change into my demo database. So now I'm working on that because now I created it. It's just as easy deleting a database. So for example, to delete a database, you have to type the keyword drop and then database to say it's the database you want to drop, because you can also drop tables. And then if I want to drop my demo, I do that. I could also say drop database MRS 2019. This is an old one. Try to run. Let's see if this works. Refresh. Didn't actually work. I don't know if it's because I'm working on the it says I can't do it because it's in use. Okay, but this is how you do it. I just didn't want to delete the demo database just after creating it. So that's how we work with, we can do drop and we can do create. And this is the same for tables. So that leads us to the next thing. So what if we want to do some tables? If we open up the demo here, we can see there are no tables in here right now. It's just empty. So let's create some tables. Let's say I want to add some persons. So I'm going to say create table, and then I'm going to say persons. So this is just the name of the table, and I'm just going to click run, and I create table persons. So of course I can't just create a table called persons. I also need to define some columns inside of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use parentheses, and in here I need to tell persons which column name and type of data I want in here. So for example, for persons, I would want to have something like an ID, and I need to specify the data type for that as well. So I think I want to have an int like that. And I can also specify a name. And I see immediately that name is becoming blue. So that means it's taken as a keyword. So I better call it something else. We could also wrap it in something like this. But I think for ease, I'll just call it full name. And I also need to specify the data type for that. And you're used to programming, so you already know int. There's a small difference here, like parameters. When you use parameters on methods, normally you put the type first, but here you have to put it second. Also, there's no string in here, so we cannot use the string data type. So if we look up Microsoft SQL Server data types, you'll probably find something here. And let's see, there are different kinds of data types. So we can see we have exact numerics, like int is the one we're using here. But more interesting, if we want characters or something like that, we have char, we have varchar, and we have text. So let's see. And then we have, this is for simple character strings, and then we can use Unicode character strings. So I would definitely recommend to use the Unicode strings for that. So if we use something like text or in text for Unicode, then it will be, you see the size here for in text is the maximum string length of 2 to the power of 30, which is quite a lot. So it's storage in bytes, so you can't say exact how many how much text you can have in here, but it's a lot, right? So there's also the char and varchar, and these doesn't use the Unicode. except if we use the nvarchar. So if we go back to the types, we have to choose between character strings or Unicode character strings. In this case, let's use Unicode. So then there's the next thing. Should we use ntext or should we use the nvarchar for this? So the nvarchar, the nchar is a fixed length, so all strings will be the same length. The nvarchar will have a maximum length, and then it will be not dynamically saved. So this is probably something that we want. The maximum value is 4,000, so you can maximum put 4,000 here. So with the text, it's for a longer text. So normally we would use the nvarchar as instead of the string that we're used to using. And 4,000 characters is a lot. So, but we have to take into account what would be sensible here. So let's use the nvarchar, and we can set in here the size of it. We can write max, then it should just be the max size. But let's just set this to let's say 255 characters in length. So this should create a table on the persons, a table called persons with an ID and a full name columns in it. Let's run that. And it says cannot find stored procedure persons. So I probably just need to end these with a semicolon so that it knows it ends. I don't know. Microsoft SQL Server kind of likes this. Let's try if it works. So now it completed successfully. So let's go in here and try to refresh, and we can actually see that now we have a table in here. Yay. So we can see we have a table named persons in here, and that looks pretty nice. So we can also click here, select top 1000. That will automatically create a script for us that will then look into the contents. And we can see it has two columns, ID and full name, and that they are empty. There's no data in here. So this is how to create a table. If we want to drop the table, want to delete the table, we simply type drop table persons, and that will drop the table. That will delete the table after creating it in this. So let's try to drop the table, run this code, and we go back in here and refresh, and it's deleted. And we go back here and create the table. So of course I need to comment out this. I do that by using like this. So, and then I click run, and we go back in here and refresh, and we have the persons table back like this. Okay, so now that we created this table of persons, let's just keep that in here for a second. So what do we need to look at next? So we looked at creating a table and dropping a table already. So what if we want to alter a table? That's the next thing. So there are multiple things we can do when altering a table. We can say, we can alter by adding, or we can alter something that's already existing in the table. So let's try adding it first. So to do that, let's just I can create all the queries that I want. Oh, sorry. So I go here and say new query, and of course select the demo database. So in this query, I'm going to work with the alter. So I'm going to say alter table, and then we need to type the name of the table. In this case, it's persons. And this table, we just want to add something. So I write add, and then I need to write the column I want to add. So let's say I want to add an address, and that address should have a data type like say n varchar of 255 again. And I use my semicolon and I click run. So now we can go into our demo database and see we have persons here. And if we look up the query here, run that again. Let's see, did we add it? Also table add address. Should have the address in there. Oh, it only, yeah. So let's just create a star here just to show it. So we see that the address is also here now. So we have ID, full name, and address in our database. Okay, so of course, this is also something we can do. Of course, if we want to drop that again, so let's say I don't want the address, I actually don't because it will just confuse. So maybe I should just keep this here by using this. So let's say we want to remove that. We say alter table, persons, and then we say drop, and we have to type column in here, and then we say address like this, and we click run, and now it should be gone. Let's click in here, run, and no more address in here. So this is how we can drop something that we already did. Let's just go back again by just running this command up here and adding back the address. So now that we have the address back, let's try to change it into something. So let's just run again. We have the address now. So let's just alter the table now so that we want like, let's say 255 was too small and want to change that for the address. So I will write again alter table persons, and then I'm going to say use the command for altering the column. So then I'm going to say like alter column and you can see it's just like drop here, it just uses alter. In some languages this is called modify, but with the Microsoft SQL Server it's alter column. And then we need to type what was the column name. So in this case it was address, yeah, like that. And the address, I want to change the type to n varchar of 300 instead. And with this, and click run, and then we change that into 300. So we can't see this in here anyway, so let's not look at that. So this is how we can do that. So what if we want to alter like multiples of these? So if we want to alter more than one of these, we can actually group them together. So we cannot do anything like this. I just typed in this. In some database systems, database servers, we could do something like this where we could put multiples here. So if we want to do more, we would have to just make multiples of these. So I could just copy this and then run 2 in one go. So if I want to do more, I need to remember my semicolon. And let's say I want both the address and the full name to be changed into 300. I'll just run it as two separate commands like this. Go, and then that's it. So, yeah. So that is how we can alter different like tables. We can alter also databases like this. So let's talk a bit about primary foreign keys and how to auto increment here. So let's say we want to change, originally we created like an ID of an int. And what we would normally do if this was the primary key of this table, we would write primary here, and then we would also write, if we wanted it to auto increment, we would say that it was something like primary, sorry, um, forget about the auto increment identity like this. So this would have created it as the primary key when we created the table. So we could basically drop the table and recreate it as primary key. But let's try to use our new powers of altering a table and see if Microsoft won't let us do that as well. So let's just outcomment these two and let's try to do that. So we're now going to say alter table persons, and we want to make the ID alter column. We want to make the ID, we want to make that into identity specification. So we are still going to say that ID is an int, but we're also going to say that, like here, when I showed before, we need to say that this needs to be primary and that it is key identity. So it says primary key identity, meaning that we change the ID column into being a primary key identity. So let's see if we can do that. All right, so we cannot change this into a primary key like this. Although this would probably be very intuitive because this is what you can do. This is how you can change that instead. So we still need to use the alter table, but there are two different ways we can do that. I'll show you one of them. So there's actually one called add primary key, and you should type add primary key, and then you have to say that it is actually the ID that we want to be primary key, and then we click run. And it says could not define unnullable column. So that is because in order for something to be primary key, it needs to be, it can't be null. So when I created the table here, I didn't define that ID couldn't be null, because in SQL, our ints can actually be null. So what we need to do is we probably need to alter table persons, alter column ID not null, like that. So yeah, so we need to change so that the column ID cannot be null. So let's just try to run one of them at a time. So let's do the not null first. Try to run that. And it says problem here, so we need to fix that. And the reason why it's not working is probably because I still need to say that ID is an int. So maybe I should do like this. So now we also to be not null, otherwise we cannot have a primary key that can be null. So let's click run, and now that's fixed. I'll remove that and put this in here and set it to primary key. And now the person is a primary key, and also it cannot be null. So this is it, and I'm saving this for later as well. So now we created a primary key on the persons table, and we made sure that it cannot be null. So let's look up what we need next. So now we know how to create a primary key. So how can we use that primary key as a foreign key inside of our SQL code? So first off, we need to create another table. So I'll go in here and create another table. And let's create a table, create table. And let's call this something like dogs. And we're going to say that the dogs have an ID, which is an int, and they also have an full name, which is a n varchar, wow, 255, and then we need the foreign key. At first, we'll just define it as owner ID, and we'll set that to an int, of course, like that. So now we create a table of dogs, and in this case, let's change this ID. Let's say that we want this to be primary key identity, and also we want it to be not null, like that. So we're setting it to the primary key of this table immediately. So that's it. So now if we go in here, we refresh, we also have dogs. And we look here, we can look up, run this, and let's try with the dogs. Run. And we see we have owner ID here, which should be the foreign key. Okay. So last thing for this video, which is most about creating this, is then how do we actually get the auto increment working, and how do we do foreign keys? So to do foreign keys, we need to do something new here. So we need to actually create something that we call constraints, because foreign keys are basically a constraint in the system. So let me show you how to do that. So let's go over here and create, no, let's do a completely new query here, like that. So we want to add a foreign key constraint. So what I'm going to write is, I'm going to use, again, alter table, because we are going to alter the table, and we're going to say that on the dogs, we want the owner ID to be the foreign key. So there are different ways we can do this. One of them, we can use something called the add constraint. And the add constraint, we need to name it. Normally we call it FK for foreign key, and then we'll say something like person, dog, or something like that, to say that it's between the person and the dog. And then we need to say that it is a foreign key, and we want that foreign key to be between the ID, which is called foreign key, is the owner ID. Let's see. And we want that to reference. So we say references, and then we say persons, and then we need to put the ID here, which is the one that we are referencing. So this is one way to do it, which is kind of, I think, maybe not the easiest way. There's should also be another way of doing it, where we just say alter table, and then we say docs, sorry, and then we say add foreign key, and then we just say again owner ID, and then we say references, and then person's ID, like that. Personally, I think the below one is a bit easier, and that will auto generate the name. But yeah, so let's try to use that one, and then click run. So that worked. So this is how we do that. So now we have created foreign keys, and we created a constraint so that the foreign key is actually has a constraint to the key. So what that means is just that we cannot create a dog now that has an owner ID that is not in the owner table or the person table. So if we try to create a dog and put owner ID to like 5 and there's no ID in the other table with 5, we get an error. So this is what we want by design. So that's it. So lastly, before I stop this video and we try to do some mock data, we try to work with manipulating the data itself, let's just look at auto-increment lastly. But I have to confess something, and that is that when we created the table of dogs, for example, I put identity here, and when I altered also, so actually by typing identity here, this is the keyword for making the dog auto increment. So if I create a dog, it should automatically increment the ID without me doing anything. So if we look into what we did with the ID, we just saying that it shouldn't be null and we put the primary key, but we actually haven't done that to the person. So let's just try to fix that for a second. So let's go back, try to change the column ID to not null, and then also identity. See if we can do it like this. So I don't know, maybe we can put it here. No. So this is not the way to do it, obviously. So let's try to do something else. So as I understand it with the SQL Server, we cannot use this, we cannot just add it like that. So we kind of have to drop the table first. Or sorry, not we can just drop the column, sorry. So what we're going to do for doing this, we're going to say alter table persons, and then we're saying drop column, and then we're going to say ID. And after dropping it, we're going to say alter table persons, and then we're going to say add, and then I'm going to add ID, and it's going to be an int, and I'm going to say that it's identity, and I'm going to say that it's not null, like that. So let's see if we can do that. So now we get a problem again here because we have a primary key that is dependent. So we have a foreign key, so we cannot drop that column. So we need to remove our foreign key first. So maybe it's just a lot easier to drop everything and reopen it. We can see the name here. It says PK person something. We could reference this primary key and foreign key and remove the constraints by using a command for removing constraints. I think it's easier because we have all our code to create it in here. So let's create a small script for just removing everything and recreating the entire table exactly like we wanted. So this is the last thing. So I'm going to create a new query here. And first thing, I'm going to say drop table persons, drop table dogs, like that. And that means it will drop the entire table of person, the entire table of dogs. We already have the code in here to create the dogs table. So I'm going to copy that in here. And we also have the code for creating the persons table, which is here. So we put that in here. And we want the ID, like the ID of the dog, we want it to be identity. You can actually specify here also if you want to start with the number 1 and how much the starting number and how much you want to increment. So if you do like this, it will start at number 1 and the next one will be 3 and then 5 because it will increment by 2, and you can specify anything. But by default, it starts with 1 and increments by 1. So if you want to start with 0, you would do something like this. Okay, but let's just keep it like that. So now we drop the table of person, drop the table of dogs. Doesn't exist. Okay. So let's just see. Let's see. Refresh. Yeah, it is there. I don't know. Something weird going on. It doesn't recognize that. Okay. So that's it. And then we can create the foreign key. So we're going to say alter table dogs. Oh, I better copy that. So let's see, where did I put the dogs part? Was it in here? Yeah, alter table dogs, add foreign key, like that. So this is the last thing. So first off, we create the persons table, then we create the dogs table, both of them with ID as primary keys. Then we create a foreign key owner ID on that one. So let's try to run that code. Okay. Okay, so I still have a constraint. Yeah. So let's try to fix that. So we can get into like a lot of trouble this way. So I'm thinking let's try just to instead drop database demo, create database demo. Let's see if we are allowed to do that. Okay, it says cannot drop the database demo because it's in use. So maybe we should just drop the database. Let's just make a new query and then do it on the master. That's it. So now our demo database should be gone. It's not really. Let's see. Still the tables. Okay, so I still have persons for some reason. Run. Okay, so I have something. Let's just close everything down. Cancel. Let's just disconnect this one. Disconnect. Disconnect. Now I have a lot of open connections here. Let's disconnect this one. And try again. Run. Started executing. It will take some time. I think I'll just time travel. Yeah, so I had to just restart this Azure Studio and then it worked. Now I could delete it. I'm sorry. There was something weird going on, but now I dropped it. So now we can create a database demo, right? and then recreate it like that. So, and run. And now I should be able to go in here and not drop and everything. This is my code for creating. And then I want to connect, use this connection here. And instead of master, I choose my demo database, so I don't need to write demo.persons, and click run. And now if we look into, let's just refresh. If we look into the demo database, we should see everything in here. So sorry about the confusion in the end. There was some connection problem, but yeah, so be careful when setting up all your constraints and everything. And I showed you how to do the add the, what's it called, primary keys and everything. So for example, I use this add foreign key. The benefit of the first one is you actually get a name for it here. So if you want to do something changes later, you know what the name is. This one auto generates a name with a weird number on it. So you need to look it up to figure out what the real constraint is. So the name of the constraint if you want to remove it, because you can't just remove all constraints. So then you would need to drop the table and reconnect and stuff like that. Okay. I think that's it. So that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to look at how to create some mock data and also how to change data, work with data instead of just working with the tables themselves. Thanks for watching. Bye.